Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Sunday, February the 16th, 2025. And gotta say, it's very cool today. It was about 5 degrees or 6 degrees or something this morning. We went out, we started our walk. It looks like it's warmed up just a little bit at the moment, but after the days I've had in the last week or so, wow, unbelievable. I almost put the beanie on this morning. But I refuse to do it in February. Not going to happen. Big day of fights yesterday. Really good day. When I say big day of fights, I'm talking a big day of fights. I think the telecast started at 9 a.m. and I think we were still going at 4 p.m. Now that's Riyadh season standard. That is just, I don't know why they need to have such long fight cards. I appreciate it. But I think I said in yesterday's video that it'd be a nice sort of leisurely sort of get home, have a shower and a cup of coffee and settled into 3 or 4 hours of boxing. Well, 4 o'clock I'm still going. I got absolutely nothing done yesterday. I sat there and watched the fights on my computer and did nothing. Actually, I won't say I did nothing. I've got a few or 3 different screens on my desk. So I had the boxing going on one and I was working on a few bits and pieces for the bar and out of the business and that sort of stuff, just to keep busy. Plus, rooting around on YouTube and whatever else you get up to when you're on the computer. But yeah, really good day of boxing. And in the main event, of course, Keyshawn Davis claimed that world title, WBO lightweight title, with a surprising 4th round stoppage of Dennis Berinchyk. I was really, when I say surprising, I was really surprised by the ease in which he took care of business. Just easy work, as they say. I expected Berinchyk to be a lot tougher, more durable than what he was. I think I did say in the preview that I thought that Berinchyk would be a tough fight for Davis, but Davis would get the job done. But I didn't expect Dennis Berinchyk to, as I said, be easy work for Keyshawn Davis. We'll have a quick look at the whole card and we'll talk a little bit more about the main event. So I did miss a couple of the early fights because can't remember what I was doing, but Nico Ali Walsh. Now, Muhammad Ali's grandson, if you didn't know, he lost for the 2nd time, this time against Juan Carlos Guerrero. Now, I know a lot of people probably lay the boots into him and say he's a hype job and just because he's Ali's son, but I've got a lot of respect for Nico Ali Walsh. Now, yes, at the start of his career, he did play on the Muhammad Ali grandfather aspect. I think he even might wore a pair of his shorts or something like that anyway, and he really played on it, and that's smart. Why wouldn't you play that up? It gets him on big cards, it gets him televised, it gets him a lot of attention. Why wouldn't he play on that card? But I have got admiration for him that since those first sort of 4 or 5 fights, he has actually fought live competition and he's come up short a couple of times. So I'm not one of the ones that are going to say, look at this guy, well, he only got to where he is because of his grandfather. No, I think he's become a legitimate fighter, just not a elite fighter. I think we all agree that he's not going to be at the world level, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's out like a lot of other fighters out there, just having a go. So I think we've got to give him a pat on the back for that, but especially the fact that he's gone past just a lot of those tomato cans, as they call them, early in his career, just all for the publicity and the attention and all that sort of stuff, and the drama that it builds and the storyline, all that sort of stuff. I think now that he's actually gone into being a legitimate fighter and just fighting actual fighters, he's come up short a couple of times, but nothing wrong with that. So I got respect for Nico Ali Walsh, but he was beaten by Juan Carlos Guerrero yesterday, and it was, I haven't got the scorecards on there, but he drops to 10-2. Guerrero improves to 6-1-1. The next fight there we had, who was it? Didn't actually see this one. Or did I? Yes, I did, sorry. Juan Lopez de Jesus with I think it was a KO, first round, I think it might have been, over Brian Santiago. I think that was the one. Yeah, it was. Look, I think he's an Olympian, de Jesus, strictly a debut textbook first round knockout. It's just the way it is in boxing. You get a hot shot out of the amateurs. What's the first thing you do for them? You just get them a first round knockout so everyone says, wow, look at this guy. So I'm not going to probably judge the fight too much or comment too much. It was just what they do. Olympic representative straight out of the amateurs, get him on the big card and get him a first round KO. So that's all that was. Another one a little bit like that was Keyshawn Davis, Keyshawn's brother, up against Ira Johnson. Now another impressive knockout, but again, an absolute stiff. I shouldn't say that. Shouldn't call any fighter a stiff, but the guy, let's just say, maybe shouldn't have been in the ring with Keyshawn Davis. It was strictly, again, a record padding win. The highlight reel KO sort of thing, and he did that, so good on him. He'll move on. Part of this is 3 brothers or something, isn't there, in the family, so good on him. He got the win. The next one was Abdullah Mason with a knockout. What round was it? Does it actually say there? Don't think it actually says. Hang on, I'll go to his actual record. I think it was the second round or something, was it? 4th round. Sorry, I thought it was the 2nd round. But a really impressive performance by Abdullah Mason. Now, Manuel James actually went 10 rounds with Rolly Romero last year. Look, I would probably count him as a journeyman, although he had a 16-2 record going into the fight, but limited. But I thought Abdullah Mason, especially after his last fight before that, which was against Johan Vasquez, how can we forget that? That was just a rock'em sock'em affair, wasn't it? Both guys hitting the canvas. It was an entertaining fight, but not the type of fight that I would think that Abdullah Mason's team would want from him. And I really think this time he was patient, he was composed, he really picked his shots, he didn't get drawn into a firefight. Very, very impressive performance from Abdullah Mason, and I think he's going to be a good fighter down the track. Or what is he now? He's 17-0 now, so he's probably at the stage where he's going to step up now. And an entertaining fight down the track could be Abdullah Mason and Keyshawn Davis. That could be a real... Could it be a Crawford-Spence type of fight down the track where we're really building up to it? Who knows? But he's got some ability, Abdullah Mason, and as I said, a very, very impressive performance, especially after that last fight, which he wouldn't have been happy with at all, and especially his team wouldn't have been happy with either, I wouldn't have thought. The next fight, I'm not sure the exact order of these fights, by the way, guys. I'm just sort of going through them. I can't remember what order they were on the day. The next one, Vito Mielnicki Jr. and Connor Coyle. He was the Irishman. Now, it was a draw after 10 rounds. But look, I've got to be honest. I thought Mielnicki, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I was having a bit of trouble. Even the commentators were yesterday. Vito Mielnicki Jr., I thought he won the fight over Connor Coyle. It was, as I said, a majority draw. I think it was 96-94 for Mielnicki and 95-95 on the other 2 cards. Yeah, I thought that Mielnicki, he was the aggressor. Look, don't get me wrong, Coyle was game. He traded with Mielnicki. It was a back and forth type of fight. Both guys landed some big shots. A real action-packed fight, really good fight. But I just thought Mielnicki closed the fight out better. I thought his work rate was better. I thought he landed the better punches. And I would have had him... Look... I would have had him probably 6 rounds to 4. And look, when you've got 2 judges have it 5 rounds apiece, well, okay, you're going to have a couple of swing rounds, I suppose. But I just thought Mielnicki did more than enough than just to get a draw. So he'd be disappointed. And he looks the goods. He's gone from 154 up to 160, and I like him at that weight. Connor Coyle, typical sort of Irish guy. He's, skill-wise, maybe not as skilled as others, but geez, he makes up with the heart. He had that big cut over the left eye, I think it was, from those big right hands from Mielnicki. But look, either way, no matter how you saw it, just a ripper fight and another excellent fight to have on the card. So I really enjoyed that one. Rowan Polanco with was it a 2nd round knockout of one Carlos Torres? I think it was the 2nd. Where was it? 2nd round. He's very impressive, is Polanco. I actually saw him live. Where was it? It was at the Palms in Las Vegas a year and a half or something ago. I can't remember what fight I was actually there for, but they had that fight on as well, that card on as well at the Palms, and I went, might have been Crawford-Spence, I reckon, maybe that weekend. But very impressive. Former Olympian as well from Puerto Rico. He's a good fighter. Now, granted, the opposition hasn't exactly been stellar so far. But what is he, 15-0 now? So time to step him up as well. At welterweight, I think he was. Now he's going to cause some issues at welterweight as well. Some really good talent coming up from Top Rank. So yeah, don't count out Top Rank yet as far as having some real quality fights down the track. They sort of have been forgotten these days with what Riyadh Season and Oscar and Eddie and all that are doing, Frank Warren. But yeah, Top Rank, some really good fighters on their cards. So yeah, Rowan Polanco, very, very impressive. And the other one, Jared Anderson, with a 10-round decision over Marius Collius. I don't know what Collius was doing. He didn't turn up until the last round. He actually had Anderson rocked in the last round, didn't he? Last probably 15 seconds or something. But look, not a great performance from Jared Anderson. I think a lot of it's got to do with apparently he took the fight on a short notice or hadn't had a long camp, something like that anyway, but it wasn't a very impressive performance at all. So what does he move to? 18-1 now. Yeah, Collius, look, he just, for one reason or another, just was in second gear the whole fight, allowed Anderson to pretty much dictate the whole fight, dominate the whole fight. And as I said, didn't turn up until the last sort of round. So he will rue what could have been. But Jared Anderson, I think this will just be one of those fights where he says, look, let's just get the win and move on. It's his first fight since he was stopped by Bacoli. So, yeah, I suppose you can understand that he just wants to get a win under... sorry, I'm just looking at someone else there. Yeah, that he just wants to get a win under his belt and move on from there. Some big fights for him still at heavyweight, but he needs to look a lot better than that if he's going to get on some of those big cards overseas. Then we moved into the co-main, Xander Zayos with that stoppage of Slower Spoma with the body shot. I thought the stoppage was a little premature, if I'm being honest. I know he had, how do you pronounce his name? He's a German, Spoma. Is that how you pronounce it? Spoma? Trained by Roy Jones Jr., by the way. Look, he was game and tough. I think Roy done as good a job as he could with a pretty limited fighter. But Xander Zayos, he just seems one of those fighters who, all the talent in the world, but I've just got a gut feel that, first of all, he thinks he's a hell of a lot better than what he is at this stage of his career. And he takes some unnecessary risks. I think he punches himself out too early in the fight. And yeah, I know he's only 22 years of age, but all this talk about stepping up and fighting the top 154-pounders next has to stop. Before the fight, they actually did a little bit of a documentary on him, and he actually had himself as #1 in the 154-pound division. Now, I know that's, you know, par for the course, that's what he's going to do, but to think that you're above fighters like Terence Crawford and Murtazaliev and these types of guys, I think... yeah, you need a bit of a reality check, and he's nowhere near that at the moment. Look, he's a very, very talented young fighter, don't get me wrong. Look, he can box, he can punch. Look, for the first 2 or 3 rounds, he always looks sensational, looks dynamite. The problem is once the fight settles into its groove and the pace slows down a little bit, his opponent can get a little bit closer to him, and everything sort of from his angle slows down a tad. He just looks, he can be hit. He can be hit and looks nowhere near that superstar that I suppose he thinks he is, and a lot of his team think he is, and a lot of his supporters thinks he is. But yeah, look, I'm not to say he's not going to make it, but I've got some real doubts about if he fights the way he does at the moment and jumps into those big fights too quickly, we could see Xander Zayos on the end of a couple of losses, I think, because yeah, he needs work. Again, 22 years of age. Very talented young kid, but I think, in my opinion, he needs at least another 5, 6, 7 fights. Now, the odds are he won't wait that long. He'll want to jump in with one of the big guys, and that's great. But I don't sort of see it at the moment that he's going to be that fighter at 154 at the moment. And then the main event, as I said at the start, Keyshawn Davis, very, very impressive. Geez, the size difference was massive, wasn't it? Has been some criticisms about Davis sort of being a weight bully, but geez, if you can make the weight on the day or the day before, whatever it is, well, I don't see what the problem is. It's a massive advantage for him because it really did look like a welterweight or even a super welterweight fighting a lightweight, and a small lightweight at that. Berinchyk just was never in the fight. I was surprised that he went down so easily by body shots. Yeah, it's disappointing performance from Berinchyk, but I suppose we should be focused on Keyshawn Davis. Got the job done. That's all he had to do. Did it in very, very impressive fashion, and there's some big fights for him now at 35. I've got to say, though, I'm still not a fan. Very, very good fighter, but another one of these fighters that just has no class. No class whatsoever. In the lead up to the fight, his actions were embarrassing. They really were. I know there was a racism thing, I'm not getting involved in all that. A lot of he said, she said sort of stuff in that. But for me, just another loudmouth fighter. Doesn't need to be that way. I mean, someone like Terence Crawford's shown, if you're talented enough and can fight and you get the job done regularly, you don't need to be that guy. And he's just, I know it seems to be the mould these days with these type of fighters, but the Tank Davises and Charlos and all these types of guys, Devin Haney's, just, you don't need to be like that. And it's really turned me off as far as Keyshawn Davis goes, because the guy can fight. He's a very, very good fighter. But I, for one, will be happy guy the day that someone gives him a bit of a touch-up. I know that's probably a bad thing to say, but I just don't like fighters like that. I know I'm probably old school, I get that, but you know, I just don't like it. Look, I know you've got to have the trash talk. I know you've got to have the back and forth. I know you've got to have the argy-bargy. I get it. But do it with a little bit of class. I mean, it's just a big mouth. But anyway, probably comes from his coach a little bit too, who was, again, it was disrespectful in Berinchyk too after the fight in an interview that he did as well. Not very complimentary. I just think keep your mouth shut. Compliment the fighter for being a world champion. Pat your guy on the back and move on. You don't need to be disparaging against the opponent, I don't think anyway, especially against a guy like Berinchyk who does have class. Like most of the Ukrainians do, well, all the Ukrainians do, they have class and dignity and respect. And a lot of these American fighters just don't, unfortunately. But anyway, we'll move on. Now, the other news. Yesterday, I did put a brief thing up on our Instagram page, is that it looks official that the Brock Jarvis, Jeff Fenech relationship is over because Jeff Fenech hasn't done any work with Brock in the camp. I think we touched on that the other day. But it looks like Brock's dad will be the chief second on the night. And rugby star turned boxer, Curtis Scott, will be in the corner as well. Now, I just don't know why in the biggest fight of your life and in a fight that you're going to have to exceed all your own expectations and everyone else's expectations out there and maybe exceed your limitations in the ring, that you would have your father, who has zero experience in the boxing game, and a guy like a lot of them do think they know a lot about boxing but knows nothing in Curtis Scott. He just thinks he's been a boxer for 5 minutes, so now he's qualified to be in the corner of a fight like this, even if it might just be as a helper in the corner. It doesn't matter. He's going to have Dom, his dad, and Curtis Scott as his trainers in his corner for a very big task, a monumental task of bringing down Keith Thurman. And it's not just the fight itself. I know when the bell rings, you know, it's fighter against fighter, and maybe Brock's will might come to the fore. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Thurman doesn't turn up in the best condition. I don't know. But what he's going to have to realise is that it's not just the fight itself. It's the mind games. The lead up to the fight, when Keith Thurman gets here, he's going to be all over Brock as far as trying to get into his head, and the little mind games, little tricks that they come, little, like it might be at the weigh-in, and just little things that come up, press conference. He just knows everything, Keith Thurman. He's been at the level. Having someone like Jeff Fenech in your corner, he knows all those tricks of the trade. He knows all the little things they get up to, and he's been there and can help, or could have helped Brock through the whole process, and just been prepared for what Keith Thurman's going to bring. How is Brock Jarvis in his corner going to react when Keith Thurman starts the mind games and the little tricks that he does at the press conference and weigh-in, and the fight itself? I mean, lots of things go down. You need experienced guys in your corner. What happens if Brock gets dropped badly in the first round and goes back to the corner and he's all over the place, loses his composure, loses his focus, loses everything? You really think his dad or Curtis Scott's going to be able to get him back on track and get him to refocus and focus back on the fight and get back to the game plan? I don't think so. Whereas someone as experienced like Jeff Fennick would be able to do that. Now, who knows? Maybe it won't be the be-all and end-all on the night, and Brock will just go out there and perform and doesn't need all that. But I just think at that level, this is not just an Australian level fight. This is a former two-time world welterweight champion who's fought everybody out there and only lost to Manny Pacquiao. And you're going to go into a fight, and not just that, by the way, but someone who's just loves the whole theatre of the sport and getting in people's heads, especially inexperienced guys. And you're going to go in there with your dad, who's never been at the level, or any level, by the way, and Curtis Scott, who's been in the sport 5 minutes and is a rugby league player. Just, yeah, not a great decision as far as I'm concerned. I just would have thought maybe they could have gotten through this this fight with Thurman and then split afterwards, or maybe talked it out, whatever. But the fact that he's got rid of Jeff now before the biggest fight of his career just doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, I'm sure they will sort it out. And just one other thing before I go, I didn't mention it yesterday. I ran out of time, and it probably looks like I'm going to run out of time to go over it a lot in this one. I don't like to sort of go too far over 20 minutes, but yesterday was the 40th anniversary of Lester Ellis's win over One Kill You for the IBF junior lightweight title back in the day, 130 pounds. It was the first big fight I'd ever seen in my life, or in Australia, and Lester Ellis was my hero after that. I loved Lester. The adulation that Lester had from the Melbourne crowd was just something I've never seen since. I still remember the crowd chanting Lester and, you know, launching up into the ceiling when he, or into the sky or whatever it was when he won the belt. It was probably my best Australian memory. I think I just touched on this just recently. I think I had Jeff Harding in there as well with Dennis Andrews. But as a young 11-year-old kid, I still remember it was the first sort of big Aussie fight I'd seen. It was 1985, wasn't it? It was 40 years, yeah. And I still have fond memories. I still think about that to this day, and my first magical memory of Australian boxing. You know, a lot of people back in the day had Famo and Lionel Rose and those types of guys. Well, I had Lester Ellis, just a superstar at the time, 19 years of age, if you can believe that, winning the world title and defending it a couple of months later, and then fighting Berinchyk a couple of months after that. Just a machine was Lester, and I just loved him as a young kid coming up. And yeah, 40 years it's been since he won that world title over One Kill You, one of the best fighting names of all time. But hope Lester's doing well. He's a superstar, and I think sometimes a little bit underrated in the Australian boxing landscape. In Victoria, he's still beloved, don't get me wrong, but I think he sometimes gets lost a little bit in the annals of boxing history in Australia, because you know, he was probably at the same time as Jeff Fennick, and he sort of took all the attention and everything else, and Lester probably didn't have a lot of massive fights after that one. But anyway, all the best to Lester Ellis, and again, one of my best memories ever in Australian boxing. So guys, that's probably going to do it for today. I hope you have a great Sunday. I'm going to go back and actually watch the remainder of the fights this morning. Jack Catterall, Arnold Barboza. So I think the main event was probably about 2 hours away when I left for this walk. So I'll go back and check that out. So guys, have a good one, and we'll catch you tomorrow.